Peace, family, peace, 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 peace. Okay, so my name is Nina Bryant. I do these inspirational videos, just talking about the things I've been through, gone through, grew through. And if you are new to my channel, I welcome you. If this is your second go round, okay, I appreciate you guys for being here. And so in today's video, I wanted to talk about abuse is love, okay? And how I came up with that concept. So I had wrote a book. I didn't send it to the publisher yet. I talked about putting this book into go mode probably about 2 years ago. And I believe this year is going to be it. I am going to do it. I talk to you guys all the time about, instead of saying what you want to do and, you know, coming up with excuses why you can't do those things, just take massive action and do it. So I'm talking to myself, okay, too. So today's video, right, abuse is love. So from youngin', okay, growing up seeing my father, my dad abuse women, I thought that's what love looked like, okay? And a lot of times we tend to do things where so we don't even have a clue why we do them, why we go back to them, why we accept them, right? And one of the things I had got from my mentor, Bob Proctor, the late great Bob Proctor, he was a part of The Secret. One of the things he talks about a lot is the paradigm. And so the paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. So the paradigm is the subconscious mind. A lot of times we tend to do things and we are operating from the subconscious, right? The subconscious mind does not know fantasy from reality. And so as a little girl saying, my father, you know, beat women, thinking that's what love is supposed to be. Especially, you know, when a woman would come back and they would, you know, have sex with my dad and then tell my father that they loved him. And most of the women, they suffered from some form of addiction, whether it was heroin, crack, or alcohol. They suffered from some form of addiction. And seeing it as a kid, you know, I just adopted that concept that abuse is love. And so I remember this one particular day, it was my teenage years, probably around 16, 17, and I was walking with my brother. And my brother, he's older than me. He's, you know, wise and, you know, so knowledgeable. And I remember one time I said to him, I looked at him and I said, I want a guy that's going to abuse me, that's going to put his hands on me. And my brother immediately was like, what? Shut up. That don't even sound right. Like, you sound so stupid. But he didn't understand where I got that concept from. In fact, I, at that time, didn't understand where I got the concept from. Because a lot of times we do things, but we are so unaware of why we do them. And so later on, fast forward, I got exactly what I asked for. See, in this picture right here of me and my oldest daughter, I remember it was this guy who I liked so much. Honey, he was nice looking. Even at a young age, I liked him. He probably had me by 8 years or so. And we grew up together, okay? And I remember seeing him, you know, with the fancy cars and fancy clothes and, you know, the North Face coats and the gauze, okay? Honey, if you from the hood, you know what I mean, okay? Seeing him with the construction Timbs and, you know, he was swagged, okay? And he reminded me so much of my father. And even in that aspect, I didn't understand it at that time. And so fast forward, me and him, I exchanged my number, me and him started talking. And I remember the very first time he put his hands on me, right? It was an older guy who I had told him about previously. And what I would do, I was so insecure about who I was. And I wanted the person who I was dating, I wanted them to feel lucky that they had me, right? I wanted them to think that I was the prize. Although I didn't think of myself as being the prize, but I wanted somebody else outside of my existence to think that. And I remember I told him about this guy who was older, you know, a bit flirtatious and, you know, things of that nature. And I remember I seen the older guy and I was like talking to the older guy, and my ex, who was abusive, he had pulled my hair and pulled me like all the way on the ground. And he was like, isn't that the guy that you told me about? And I was like, yeah. And that was like the first time he put his hands on me. And I made excuses. A part of me knew it wasn't right, but from the subconscious perspective, seeing it happen to so many women, I made it okay. I thought that was love. And so growing up, I mean, being with this guy, it started off, you know, him putting his hands on me one time and then apologizing, saying how sorry he was. And then later on, going to work with a black eye, fingernail broken all the way down, right? Like the flesh is showing, so bloody. And I remember when I went to work, because I was doing security at that time, and it was for a CVS. And I remember I went to work, here I am, a black eye, and I always would say, I would never, right? But the programming in me was so strong that I thought that was okay. And I would justify for what he did. I would make excuses for why he put his hands on me. And I just thought that was love. And I remember the site supervisor, he had came to the CVS that day, and he was like, what happened to you? And I made up a lie, and I said, I got jumped by some girls. But it was the guy who I was dating who did it to me. And it was times I would cry, but still make excuses to go back to him. And I remember this one particular day I was pregnant, and I went through his phone because I knew he was cheating. I knew he was a womanizer. In fact, I felt like I was the luckiest female in the world to be with someone like that. And I remember I went through his phone. It was a girl that was calling him. And I was going through his phone, and I kept going through it. And I answered the phone, and I'm like, hello? And the girl is like, hello? And I ghost him, and I'm like, see, you messing around. Like, you know, approach him. And the next minute I know he pulled my hair, banged my head. Right here, I still have the scar, like banged my head on the radiator. And blood was coming out. He was saying he was sorry, how he would never do it again. And I never forget, my sister came to the house because I was pregnant, and she brought me to the precinct so I could put a restraining order on him. And at that time I had nowhere to go. And a part of me was like, felt a certain type of way that I didn't have nowhere to go. Although he did these things, I still was feeling some type of way to go back to him. And I remember in the precinct, when I was in there, the police officers asking me, you know, put a restraining order on him. And I was saying, I was like, but where I'ma go? Like, where I'ma go? See, that was the glue that sort of made me stay with him. And an excuse. Where I'ma go? I don't have nowhere to go. And so I went back to his house that same night. And everything was fine. It was almost as if nothing ever happened. Although right here was like so bloody, and I remember him banging my head on the radiator. I remember those things, but I was willing to accept it for somebody to tell me they love me, for someone to say, you know, I'm the only one, although it was evidence of me not being the only one. And so, fast forward, he had kicked me out of his home, and it was me and my oldest son at the time, and I was pregnant. And so when he kicked me out, I had went to stay with my brother, and I stayed there for a while until I was able to get into transitional housing so I could get my own apartment through Section 8. The reason I'm telling you guys this story because I know what it's like to be a person that is constantly being abused, and a part of you know that you deserve better, but it's a part of you feel like he's gonna change, you know? Let me just spend some more time with him. Let me cook for him a certain way, clean for him a certain way, you know, do his laundry, have sex with him when I don't necessarily want to. Let me do those things because I know he's going to change. The truth of the matter is people change when they want to change. Like, I didn't change, you know, when people kept telling me how stupid I was, right? When people kept saying, you need to leave him, right? And I would, you know, nod my head like, yeah, I know, but I will go back to him. And so we all have the ability to change our lives. See, I had to realize that it was unhealthy to be in an abusive relationship. Was I willing to accept the illusion of love so much that it would cost me my life? And so I had to do something different. And even when I went to the transitional housing program, I still was with him. In fact, I remember this one particular day, one of my homegirls at the time, me and her was in the transitional program together. And I would go down to projects because that's where my grandmother lived. And that's where I know him from because we grew up in the same hood. And I remember my homegirl at the time, she said, oh, I just seen your, your ex, right? At the time, me and him still was exclusive, right? And she was like, he was with such and such. He was with another girl. And so I freaked out. I took my daughter and I had went outside. My daughter is, she was in a carriage. I went outside and I seen him and I approached him and he pulled my hair and dragged me down the projects. And I remember my cousin had came out and my brother, because somebody went and told them oh, I see your sister, he putting his hands on your sister. And then my cousin had had a shotgun. And in that moment, I cared for this dude so much that I had put my daughter in front because I didn't want nothing to happen to him. And I know at that time, that's how silly and foolish I was. And if somebody was to ask me why would you love somebody more than your children? Honey, I loved him more than I loved myself, okay? And so later on, I finally wound up getting a restraining order on him. And within probably a month or so, he wound up going to jail. So in life, we all have, there's no right or wrong in this here universe. It's just error. And when I say is no right or wrong, what I mean is this law called law of polarity. Your right or your good could be somebody else's bad. And somebody else's bad could be your good. And so somebody will say or be judgmental, like, girl, you stupid. Why you stayed, right? All these different things. But I would make an excuse. Because this is love. This is what love feels like. And later on, I started doing the work on myself, right? And I'm constantly doing the work on myself. This is an ongoing thing. This is not like, oh, one time and, that's it. This is an ongoing thing. Constantly changing the programming. Constantly changing the paradigm. And I still don't look at him like he's a bad person, because people always tell us in the beginning exactly what to expect from him. See, in the beginning, I remember I had asked him, I said, why your mother don't have a boyfriend? And one of the things he said to me was, because they all want to put their hands on my mother, right? And he was telling me at that given time, that's what he grew up seeing. And I think because many of us, we be so programmed to what is familiar. See, it was familiar me seeing that women abused and, black guys and, head busted. It was familiar to me seeing it. And it's like we hypnotized, so to speak. Hypnotized so much that we don't even know what the hell is going on with us. We know a part of us is like, this is not right. Like the spirit is like, this is not right. But the soul, from the emotions and what we grew up seeing, the soul is saying, no, this is what it is, right? And for so long, I thought that's what it was. And if I could give any advice to my younger self, it would be, love is not painful. Love is not, I am going to put my hands on you to prove to you that I love you. Love is not possessive. Love is not jealousy. Love is acceptance. Okay? Now, accepting a person exactly who they are for who they have shown you what they are. Right? But not making justifications and saying, well, he put his hands on me this one time, he ain't gonna do it again, because oftentimes they do it again because it's programming. Even programming with him, he was programmed to believe this is the way you love someone, right? Seeing his mother being abused. And so if I could offer you guys one thing, I would highly encourage you to get this book, Mastery of Love by Don Miguel. And in his book, he talks about how someone can't give you something that they don't have. A lot of times we say, well, I want them to love me a certain type of way. But how could they love you a certain type of way if they don't know what that is? See, if a person grew up being abused, seeing abuse, do they really know what healthy love is? Do they know what a healthy relationship is? Chances are no, because no one ever taught them. And so with that being said, I hope you guys got something from this. I'll see you guys next video. And at first I wasn't going to do this video. And this video came about when it's always meditation for me. Whenever I meditate, I get these ideas. At first I didn't want to do the video because I was saying, my channel ain't really about that, whatever. But I also stated, right? I talk about what I've been through, what I've gone through, and what I grew through. And so I'm happy to share my experience with you guys. I'm happy to teach, right? Teach my experience and let you guys know that whatever it is that you grew up singing, right? You do not have to constantly recreate that reality. You have the ability to recreate something different. But how do you do so if you don't know? If you unaware of what you're doing, right? How could you change it? And I never want to give anybody who may have done anything to me, which I always say, people can't do anything to you without your permission. See, I allowed him to do it because my self-image, right? My self-image, the way I seen myself, thinking I was the luckiest person, the luckiest female in the world to be with somebody that was abusive, right? Like, how do you, feel so lucky to be with somebody that was so abusive? And I just felt that way because I knew there was a lot of females that liked him. And so I will always make excuses. I'm the luckiest one, right? Although nowadays I don't believe in luck. And with that being said, I catch you guys on the next one. Don't ever be afraid to tell your truth, to tell your story, because there's so much meaning and power in it. And you don't know who you may be helping out. And so I appreciate you guys. And I love you guys for rocking out, because I say, you could have been, but you here with me, and I appreciate you.